be a good fit for the team because, if our theory is correct, they are all one people under the mutant gene, so he would feel a kinship with them. It wouldn't be a surprise if he also joined the MCU's version of the Illuminati or the Avengers. But the second the wind changes and he sees an opportunity to gain power for his people, don't be shocked to see him join up with the likes of Doctor Doom or even the next Thanos. Of all the characters introduced in Marvel's Phase 4, Namor is definitely a wild card to keep an eye on. And that's everything you need to know about how Black Panther Wakanda Forever potentially sets up the X-Men. What's your take on how mutant kind will pop up in the MCU? Pitch us your best theory in the comments. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out our other Black Panther Wakanda Forever videos, and for more Marvel, stay tuned to IGN.
There is a new world power.
Wakanda will fall.
They think we're vulnerable. They're welcome to find out.
Get tickets now, only in theaters November 11th.
The time has come for you to come home and be reunited with me.
After the untimely death of Chadwick Boseman, Fran's family and fans across the world mourn the loss of the actor that introduced the iconic Black Panther in the MCU. Now, his legacy will live on in his work, and even in death, his impact was felt. Now, his influence casts a huge shadow over the upcoming Wakanda Forever film, which many members of the cast and director Ryan Coogler have stated will honor the actor who portrayed T'Challa. Now, from what we've seen in the trailers, it seems like a lot of emotions are surging through the citizens of the African nation, and it's clear that Wakanda and the MCU also lost T'Challa. Now, while Boseman's death led Coogler to reshape the script to acknowledge the loss of the actor who portrayed the character, it's likely we won't be seeing T'Challa's Black Panther anytime soon in the coming Marvel phases. But that doesn't necessarily rule out the possibility of a variant showing up at some point. In fact, I think it'd be a smart move for Marvel to eventually replace T'Challa in the MCU. And here's why.
Move, Captain. I won't ask a second time.
Now, both Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness introduced us to the MCU's multiverse on the big screen, with Loki playing within the realm on Disney+.
Hello.
Now, the multiverse gives Marvel a world of almost infinite possible outcomes for some of our beloved Marvel characters. Like, think about it. What if there's a universe out there where Tom Cruise is in fact Tony Stark?
Yeah, baby.
Now, whoever decides to take up arms as a Black Panther variant should likely have some ties to the Wakanda we already know. Like, maybe there's a universe out there where Killmonger became the ruler of Wakanda and the next Black Panther. Like, I guess technically there's probably a Schrodinger's universe where he won that fight with T'Challa, and maybe he ended up pushing T'Challa into the sea. Now, variants can exist all day, and it's more than possible that there's a universe in the MCU's multiverse where T'Challa is still alive and remains the Black Panther. But what about the main 616 universe? Could Killmonger actually return?
Lieutenant Killmonger? What is that, German?
A nickname.
That's clearly a good fit. I see where they got it.
Well, honestly, it depends on if Marvel Studios is willing to, make some loose adaptations based on events in the comics. Like, Killmonger was, in fact, revived in Black Panther issue 20 during the Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda. Now, these were events that occurred after the Secret Wars, so maybe Michael B. Jordan could return at some point.
The world's gonna start over, and this time we're on top.
But you know what? That's besides the point. The real question here is, what is the reality of Marvel recasting the role of T'Challa?
I must take the mantle back. I must right these wrongs.
Now, speaking with Empire Magazine earlier this year, Kevin Feige talked about how it was just too soon to recast the role of T'Challa at this time, going on to say, quote, "Stan Lee always said that Marvel represents the world outside your window. And we had talked about, as extraordinary and fantastical as our characters and stories are, there's a relatable and human element to everything we do. The world is still processing the loss of Chad." And Ryan poured that into the story. Now, Feige said in the interview that it was too soon to recast the role, not that it was outside of the realm of possibility. So it's likely we may see T'Challa reappear eventually. Now, obviously, if we do, the MCU will have to lean into the whole multiversal trope of making it all feasible and logical. And honestly, that's not impossible. With the What If animated series, we were introduced to a T'Challa that didn't become Black Panther, but instead Star-Lord.
Hey, stop! Show some respect! This is the Star-Lord.
And from there, he became a member of the Guardians of the Multiverse. And head writer of What If, A.C. Bradley, confirmed with us here at IGN that the animated anthology is in fact canon to the overall MCU. Quote, "It's part of the MCU multiverse. The multiverse is here. It's real. And it is absolutely fantastic, people." Now, we've seen Agent Carter, who first appeared in the animated series, show up as part of the Illuminati in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So, while it may not be possible for Chadwick to reprise his role given the circumstances, it's likely Marvel Studios will do its due diligence in recasting T'Challa eventually with an actor fitting for the role. Now, William Hurt's Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross was recently recast with Harrison Ford. William Hurt is a legendary actor, and while it's rather unfortunate he passed away, his legacy and contributions in the role of General Ross will not be forgotten, and Harrison Ford is, in my humble opinion, worthy enough to carry that torch. Now, with all this to think about, what are the upcoming events and movies in the MCU that could see the return of the King? Well, T'Challa's Black Panther made his debut in 1966 in Fantastic Four issue 52. And with the theatrical release of Fantastic Four slated for 2025, it's likely we won't see that particular story play out. But it's such an iconic one, man, with Black Panther going head to head against each member of the team to test their mettle. But there's so much more yet to be explored with T'Challa's Black Panther in the MCU. There's like so many pivotal and iconic moments we might never see on the silver screen due to the absence of T'Challa. And speaking of silver screen, there's Fantastic Four issue 545, where T'Challa rode on the Silver Surfer's surfboard and somehow managed to subdue the metallic humanoid. Although I'm pretty sure the Silver Surfer was likely just playing possum in that particular scene to siphon off information from Black Panther. But that was such a badass maneuver, and quite a lot of comic fans were talking about that very moment, seeing Black Panther swoop on in to attack Silver Surfer while catching some cosmic waves. Now, there was also a time when T'Challa subbed in for Matt Murdock as Hell's Kitchen's very own savior in 2018's Black Panther: The Man Without Fear, which saw T'Challa reestablish himself as a hero, but without the backing of his kingdom or vibranium tech. Now, instead, he just had to rely on his ability to bust heads using just his fists and feet. Now, sure, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is using Daredevil's new series, Daredevil Born Again, to properly reintroduce Matt Murdock into the MCU, but David Liss, Francesco Francavilla, and Hafte Palo's run on Black Panther: The Man Without Fear might be an excellent way to reintroduce T'Challa back into the MCU in a way that adds a bit of grit and more complexity to our favorite Wakandan prince. Now, there was also the time during the Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda story arc where T'Challa assembled a powerhouse of heroes to take on the resurrected Killmonger and other evil forces to protect Wakanda Prime. Now, this was a team that saw the likes of Ironheart, Miles Morales' Spider-Man, Luke Cage, Storm, Falcon, and a slew of other black superheroes T'Challa just had on speed dial. Now, seeing that assembly of greatness play out in the MCU would be amazing, not to mention the perfect homage to a character that has proven himself vital in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And with the MCU set to take on the Secret Wars on the big screen, it's possible they may pursue the 2015 version of the Secret Wars, which reinterpreted the original story from the 80s by raising the stakes of those particular events. Now, this time around, the Ultimate Universe and Earth 616 were on a collision course set to wreck the multiverse. And in a move similar to what we saw in the MCU's Avengers Endgame, T'Challa's Black Panther uses the Infinity Gauntlet and Infinity Stones to take on the big bad guy, in this instance Doctor Doom, in a fight to save both the 616 and Ultimate Universes.
Give it to me.
Now, much like in Endgame, the stakes were high, and it was great to see Black Panther taking center stage as the main hero, poised to save the day. Now, this, in my opinion, cemented T'Challa as one of the most valuable members of the Avengers, and why I think there is still so much more to be explored with that character in the MCU. Now, in this particular take on the Secret Wars, T'Challa's Black Panther played a very vital part, and while it'll likely be drastically different from the pages of the comics, with the MCU knee-deep into the multiverse, maybe we'll see the Ultimate Universe's T'Challa introduced. But you know what? It'll likely be years from now till these puzzle pieces come together. But honestly, here's hoping we'll see Marvel look to what's already been laid out in front of them as the blueprints to the current and upcoming phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So while we won't be getting T'Challa in Black Panther 2, I personally don't mind waiting till Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige, Ryan Coogler, and everyone else in charge of that decision feels the world is ready to be inspired yet again by the character Chadwick Boseman made so iconic on the big screen. Like, Chadwick's brother, Derek Boseman, told TMZ back in 2021 that he 100% approves the role being recast, as his late brother shared with him how Chadwick believed the character to be larger than himself. So this move would be fully embraced by his brother, which is honestly heartwarming to hear. Now, while Black Panther T'Challa was established in the MCU by Chadwick Boseman, the role went on to inspire many Black people and Marvel fans around the world. Now, with time and the right actor to portray that role in place, I honestly think Marvel Studios could eventually replace T'Challa and continue to inspire everyone through the proper representation. I'm Akeem Lawanson, and for more Marvel news and videos like this, keep watching IGN.
Wakanda Forever!
Cut your ears!
It's my queen.
Join us Monday, November 14th at 10 a.m. for a special live stream where we reveal everything we've been hiding about Black Panther, Namor, and the future of the MCU. Massive spoilers ahead, all will be revealed. You've been warned. Hey everyone, and welcome to IGN's Black Panther Wakanda Forever Spoilercast. Now, it's one of the most anticipated Marvel movies since Endgame, and we've all seen it, and we're here to talk about it. Now, hopefully the name's already getting it across, but this is indeed a spoilercast, people. Now, that means we're going into full-on spoilers on everything that happens in Wakanda Forever, not to mention everything else in the MCU up to this point. So you've been warned. Joining me are my good friends, Tom, Joshua, and Alex. Wakanda Forever, friends.
Back at ya.
Hello.
All right, now, right off the top, I want us to get into it. What did we think about the movie? Alex, let me start with you.
I liked it. So I think what worked really, really worked, which is why I was kind of bummed by what didn't work. It felt very overstuffed, and I felt like it kind of weighed down what I really, really liked about it. But overall, I'm positive on it.
Yeah, me too. I really enjoyed the stuff that worked, and there's just a lot of extra stuff, a little fat that could have maybe been cut, but it's the MCU gonna MCU. But overall, I thought it was good.
Yeah, and we'll get into it a little more, I think, and we're kind of hinting at the elements of the movie that maybe worked in their own right, but maybe weren't in service of the greater movie. And yeah, those are the weaker parts, because what Black Panther Wakanda Forever does well, it does very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really pulled on those emotional heartstrings, like right off the bat, too, with obviously touching upon the passing of Chadwick Boseman, who was T'Challa in the movie. How do we think it handled T'Challa's death? Right off the bat.
Oh, I thought it was actually incredibly tasteful and well done, and that is the best strength of the movie, of how it helps us in the grieving process of, we lost this incredible actor who played this incredible character, and the movie is about that in a lot of ways. And just that in the opening, it starts, with that moment with Shuri, finding out, what happened to her brother, and then that. The Marvel logo, which normally has the Marvel fanfare and a bunch of flashy images, is just a quiet tribute to T'Challa and the Black Panther with no music. I heard people crying in the theater when that happened. Just like there were sniffles immediately, and it was very powerful. And so I thought throughout the whole movie, and in the way it ended, on Shuri, coming to grips with what happened was great, because a lot of the time in blockbuster movies when this happens, we don't get a chance to mourn the character on screen. Yeah. I can think of 2 instances where this has happened before, something similar. Heath Ledger playing the Joker, that had already been filmed, that was in the can, so it wasn't like they could go back and change something. And nor would it be appropriate to mourn the Joker. It's a little different. And then Rise of Skywalker with Leia, I think they tried their best to reuse old footage to make something, and I appreciate that they tried, but I wouldn't say it quite worked, wasn't as effective as what they did here. I thought this was very respectful and tasteful, and a good way to remember the character and the actor.
And the movie does take a really light touch in sort of how it converses with Chadwick's passing. It's not out there to specifically say, oh, this is how T'Challa died, or T'Challa died in combat. It's not important. The important thing is that he's gone. And what does that mean for people? What does that mean for the audience that had so much invested in T'Challa and in Chadwick Boseman as the standard bearer for that character? And the movie really takes pains to get off to a start that is honoring, what a rough situation this is for everybody involved.
That's what I really liked about it. I feel like as much as it was a tribute to Chadwick and T'Challa, it was also a tribute to the grieving process. It was extremely honest, and you kind of have this kind of very sad real world parallel where the creative team and the cast has to deal with losing their friend and their creative partner, just like, the characters in the movie have to deal with losing their son, their brother, their lover, their friend. But what I really liked about the movie is it picked up a year after his death, because that's kind of a weird, kind of stage of grieving where it's between short-term and long-term grief. It's kind of where it still feels kind of fresh, but the world kind of expects you to move on already. And you kind of see that with United Nations Council, where they're we're sorry about your king, but where's the vibranium? And I think, you kind of see each character dealing with it in their own way. You have Ramonda, who finds, kind of comfort in the spiritual, and she tries to express that to Shuri, who's more science driven and doesn't really, vibe with that as much. So this my favorite part of the movie. I just thought it was so honest and accurate, and it's grieving.
Yeah, the emotional impact was definitely there. It was funny because it kind of took me back to that moment when we all found out about Chadwick Boseman's passing. So it was nice to kind of see that reflected in the film. A year or so later, or has it been just a year?
It had been 1 year on the anniversary of his death. They bring that up in the movie. Yeah, which is why the queen, takes Shuri to the riverbank, right, for her to burn the garments and end the grieving process.
And I loved that scene too, because you have Ramonda trying to comfort her with the spiritual, and Shuri's oh, like it's a very relatable scene for anyone who's lost someone, and then someone's like, well, they're in a better place, or they're still with you, and if you can't relate to that, then that's really hard. And again, that's one of the things I really love about this movie.
And we should probably mention the fact that one of the reasons Shuri takes this as hard as she does is that opening scene, we see her trying to synthesize the heart-shaped herb, which Killmonger burned all of in the first Black Panther movie, and she's unable to do it. She can only get the confidence level up to just 28%, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so she puts it on herself. So there's the survivor's guilt aspect. I could have stopped this. I could have done something. And it really does ground that personal drama that Wakanda Forever is so invested in with Shuri's character in such a relatable place to feel like, oh, if I could have done something else, I could have fixed this. And it's a heartbreaking place to start from.
It's brutal how it starts of her learning the news of what happened. Very much mirrors how I think that actually I felt when I heard the news of just suddenly like he was fine one second and the next, he's gone. And I appreciate them, including that in the movie in that way. And then to what you were saying of that moment where she says, the queen, she says something along the lines of like, I feel the breeze on my back and that's T'Challa. And then in the end, I thought the end shot of just Shuri on the beach, finally having that moment for herself and allowing her to like feel her brother, and we get that flood of memories. I was fully crying at that point.
Yeah.
And I thought it's a great thing to do, start on Shuri learning this news and then end on her like finally accepting what happened.
Well, that line specific, there's something else that Ramonda says in that line. It's like, it's like a firm but like confident hand on my shoulder. And in that last shot of Shuri, I was almost thinking like, are we gonna see like a hand come onto her shoulder to end the movie? I'm glad they didn't do that. This movie actually makes no attempt to physically represent T'Challa, which is the right call. I think, people have different opinions on how the Rise of Skywalker handled Leia and ended up keeping her involved in the action. And I was not a fan of how that worked. And so I think the movie did the right thing by keeping it, keeping him out of it.
Now Shuri, she definitely... She was more fleshed out in this particular movie, and we'll get more into that in a second. But you know what? We want to check in with you, the audience, to see what you all think about our next discussion point. Did Wakanda Forever make the right choice in choosing the new Black Panther? Now, we asked you all who you think will be the new Black Panther, and 43% of you guessed right that Shuri is indeed next up. Surprisingly, 35%. We're hoping for M'Baku. Now, what do we think about this?
That is very, very wishful. I'm an M'Baku stan harder than anybody. I think it would probably be a stretch of the imagination to believe he would be the new Black Panther.
Especially when they showed like that clip in the trailer of the Black Panther in the suit. It's like, that is far too tiny to be M'Baku.
No, we were talking about this before we started the stream, that maybe the image was just stretched out. You never know. It could have been M'Baku.
Marvel visual effects artist put the time in.
But M'Baku did, I'm sure we'll talk about later, but he did get like a big step up in this movie. So, I mean, there's something.
We'll get to M'Baku. But Shuri is the new Black Panther. That is and it's the logical choice. It couldn't have been any other character, right?
Right. There's a precedent in the comics for Shuri becoming the next Black Panther. And from the second this movie starts, it starts on her. This is her story. Of course, she's going to become the Black Panther.
Yeah, that's why I kind of thought she might not be, whereas like every other sign points to her. Like you were saying, there's a precedent in the comics for it. She was extremely prominent in all the marketing. But at the end of the day, it's not a huge surprise. I was kind of thinking like, oh, they're going to make like Nakia the next Black Panther, but she seemingly wants nothing to do with that, I think.
And there is that moment there where she's on the stage, Shuri has finally synthesized the heart-shaped herb, and the camera kind of pans over to Nakia as if no way is that. I kind of thought just for a moment, like, are they going to pull a fast one and have it be Nakia? But, Shuri is the character with the comic book precedent, with what the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the pieces that it's given us up to this point. Shuri is kind of the only person that makes sense.
And it didn't feel like a twist. It didn't feel like they were trying to like pull one over on us. It was like, that makes sense.
No, it would have been a twist if it was anyone else. Like if M'Baku just walked in and give me that, I'm going to drink this. Like it would have just like thrown me for a loop. And I think a lot of us for a loop. Do we think it was satisfying though? Like what was it? was it set up properly, like her becoming the next Black Panther?
I think that's the strongest thread in the movie. I think because
strong.
it is entirely, her accepting that mantle is entirely tied into her progress through her grief. And it's only when she comes to a point of understanding of that grief that she really kind of takes on the mantle. That understanding where she's at when she starts being the Black Panther actually kind of shifts by the end of the movie a little bit. She kind of leans into some of her worst intentions when she first becomes the Black Panther, going to that big fight with Talokan. But she kind of finds her direction with it by the end.
Yeah, I actually have a question for the group in terms of her arc, because she doesn't want to be the Black Panther at first. Then she takes on the mantle to get revenge, essentially. But before that, she has like this anger in her, and it was very odd for me. It was sort of like weird for me to watch this character who was the comedic relief, like the genius comedic relief in the first movie, who's now the central figure of a very much more serious and dramatic film. And I understand that losing someone like changes you and has a big impact on you. But when she says to her mother, if I think of my brother too much, like I'm going to want to, watch the world burn, like everyone in it. I thought, whoa, that is a dark place for her to go I don't think I understood how she got to that point.
I will say, I think they explain it well with one of my favorite lines in the entire movie is when M'Baku actually says to her, I think it's something along the lines of, you've lost too much to be considered a child at this point. And I think it's something you see on her immediately. Like, one thing I've noticed about her performance throughout Wakanda Forever is that her face looks more sullen. It looks like she's had a year of grieving. And I think the thing that I kept thinking throughout Wakanda Forever was that not only are they dealing with the loss of this really personal connection, but you also think of people like Ramonda, who has the weight of the kingdom on her shoulders, and Shuri not as much as her mother, but kind of has that. So I actually was okay with how angry she was, and I think it's just a symptom of grief.
Part of me thinks this is obviously left up to it's open to interpretation. Part of it could be how she lost T'Challa. The fact that she would want to burn the world, if she thinks too much about that, part of me kind of thinks it's related to how, obviously, we don't know what happened to the actual character T'Challa in the movie. But part of me just kind of goes there that, obviously he was the savior of Wakanda. He was the ruler. Maybe something happened within that time. We don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think they do say it was an unexplained illness. Maybe they didn't get much external help from outside of Wakanda, and maybe she's mad about that.
Yeah, I would have liked a little more clarity on how did she go from being a funny sidekick to I want to burn the
watch
world.
The world burn.
Because Namor later in the movie he overheard her say that when he was creeping up on them from the riverbed, and he says we could burn the world together.
Yeah.
That's and I was like, whoa, is that even an offer she would entertain?
Are you taking me out?
Yeah.
What's going on there?
And it is, and you know what? I will say that it is a very, very sharp turn that this character has to take, and it is a function of this real world thing that the production had to deal with, losing Chadwick. It is the kind of thing that maybe if they had their chance, they would have taken more time to sort of smooth out, going from comic relief to having the weight of the world on her shoulders. That's one of the things that I actually kind of, I was willing to give the movie a little bit of a pass on, because it's hard to imagine having to deal with that as you're in the middle of making this movie.
Yeah. Well, we are only getting started. Woo, I'm so excited. We'll be back with more IGN's Wakanda Forever Spoilercast. Don't go anywhere. Keep those comments coming. We'll be back in just a second.
The only thing better than listening to IGN podcasts is watching them. Luckily, all your favorite weekly shows are here on IGN 1. Whether you're chasing the latest Xbox releases with Unlocked, looking for your PlayStation fix with Beyond, tracking everything coming to Switch with Nintendo Voice Chat, or catching up on this week's gaming news with GameScoop, we've got you covered. Check it out. Tune in every weekday at 5 p.m. for the best gaming coverage right here on IGN 1.
Tune in to IGN 1 for the latest news on your favorite releases, gameplay exclusives, and all the entertainment you can handle. And maybe even some you can't.
Cinefix on IGN 1, your friendly Friday night home for film fanaticism.
You're watching The Weekly Fix, ready to fill you in on anything you may have missed in the world of gaming and entertainment.
Find it all in one place on IGN 1.
They turned into a network. Who knew?
Everybody loves watching a speedrun of their favorite game, but what if you got a chance to peek into the mind of the developers behind those games as they watch their hard work get completely destroyed right in front of them?
What is happening right now?
That's exactly what happens on every episode of Devs React to Speedruns. We invite you to ride along with the developers as they watch, react, and enjoy some of the craziest gameplay by the most skilled speedrunners on the planet. Tune in every Saturday for a brand new episode.
If you're not following IGN on social media, what are you waiting for? We're constantly updating our feeds to bring you the latest news, gameplay, custom original content, memes, the best user-generated videos and art, and a whole lot more. Be part of the conversation throughout the year. Follow IGN on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Snapchat.
Welcome back to IGN's Wakanda Forever Spoilercast with me and my esteemed panel, Tom, Alex, and Joshua. Now we're talking just that, spoilers, so let's jump right into the next topic. Cameos. Now we got a very surprising cameo in a character we all thought was buried with his ancestors at the sea in Killmonger. Now I'm really curious to know from you all, is this the best cameo that we've seen from the MCU so far? What do we think?
I think it might be. I think this might be the best cameo in the MCU, and I think the reason for that is because it is a perfectly deployed. It sort of checks all the boxes. It's a character that we love and that hit with audiences so hard in that first Black Panther movie, but it is a cameo that is also deployed at a perfect time in service of this story, which is that it's Killmonger that Shuri sees on the ancestral plane when she takes the synthesized heart-shaped herb. And it's Killmonger. It's the character who represents the worst possible inclinations she would have as the new Black Panther. And it's this insanely tense scene that Michael B. Jordan came in and just crushed. What did you guys think of it?
Well, first of all, I want to clarify our terminology here. Nothing touches the Stan Lee cameos interspersed throughout the entire MCU. But this is actually meatier than a cameo. A cameo is like a walk-on, wink at the camera.
Yeah, a few lines.
But we're saying like this is the best deployed like surprise appearance, small role. There was another surprise appearance, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, but I would not say that it goes anywhere near how great and effective and awesome this was. Because yes, Shuri is at a point in her journey where she only wants to become Black Panther because she wants revenge. I don't even think she's willing to admit that to herself. But when Killmonger is there, and she is the one who chose, who she wanted to see, she subconsciously picked him, and that was such a great moment. And it's the great reveal as well of like we think it's her mother, and then we pan around the chair, it's Killmonger.
Well, Tom, you mentioned earlier, like there was like kind of this question about would they try to like digitally recreate Chadwick? And in that scene, I was like, oh my God, here it comes. Because I really didn't want them to do that. And I thought he was going to turn around and it was going to be T'Challa. And if it wasn't T'Challa, like you said, it was going to be Ramonda. And so for me, it has everything you could want from like a guest appearance. It's a big surprise because I had no idea it was coming. It makes sense within the storyline and within Shuri's journey. And it's a character that one of my favorite characters in all of the MCU, my favorite villain in all the MCU. Like, I totally agree with you guys. I think it was perfect.
Yeah, I think Michael B. Jordan just has the best cameos there is. I mean, the last time I was this surprised to see him was in Space Jam 2.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be honest. I'm so glad that we saw him. Now, moving on, let's talk about Namor and his little ankle wings. How do we feel about that? How do we feel he got him? Was it drinking Red Bull or what was it?
Yeah. Definitely the Talokanian Red Bull that they sell down there.
I will say it's really easy to make little ankle wings look silly, and they actually made it look kind of intimidating. I was kind of impressed.
And during action scenes, it makes this kind of like almost like
the Dune ornithopters.
I was gonna say it was more like a rattlesnake shaking its tail. It was very threatening noise. Yeah. And watching him use those to skate through the air and do those aerial action sequences where he was taking on gunships, trying to shoot him out of the sky, diving into the water, coming back up. I thought this was really cool because yes, that is a character who on paper is silly, and it gets even more silly as you try to make it more real. But I thought, wow, what a great job they did, really respecting that character and making him intimidating and really cool.
He was intimidating. Like, I can't believe it, but he really was like a force. He was formidable.
Even the introduction, like he was introduced us at night, and I don't know if y'all like the score, the musical score. It kind of reminded me of like a Godzilla type score. The way, and like I was surprised to be intimidated by a guy with ankle wings.
Yeah,
but he really pulled it off
in green swimsuit. Green swimmies.
No, but he comes in too, and like it's during that scene that I've talked about a lot with Ramonda and Shuri, and he just like comes up in the water, and it's like also in your mind, it's like, whoa, like how did he get into Wakanda? And then he's also just standing there with his elf ears and his ankle wings, and it's like, okay, like I'm interested to see where this character goes.
I enjoy in the MCU when the filmmakers find very, very quick ways to establish a villain and how a villain's going to operate in a movie. I think Infinity War does that excellently. There's all this conversation about like, oh, Thanos is totally ineffectual. What do they have Thanos do the second he walks on? In Infinity War, beat the hell out of the Hulk to show how powerful he is, how much of a threat he is. What do they do with Namor? A country that has been completely, hidden off. I mean, like people knew about it, but not exactly how amazing Wakanda was. And they have him just completely invade it and like it's no problem. And I think that was a really effective way to set up that Namor is going to be a very tricky villain to deal with here.
All right, well, next up, we polled you all and asked who you were most excited to see in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And it was kind of a tie with Namor getting 34.6% of the vote and the new Black Panther getting 34.1%. Well, fortunately, they're both in the film, so the audience, y'all got exactly what you wanted. How do y'all feel about this? Who are y'all excited to see?
I was most excited. I'm with that 13% there. I'm an M'Baku guy, so I was most excited to see M'Baku. But certainly people that are split between Namor and Black Panther, well, they get what they want.
Yeah. Right. I understand wanting to see the new Black Panther because you want to know who it is. You want to see what they can do and everything. But I was definitely most excited to see Namor because that's, it's the first Marvel Comics superhero and like the first mutant. So much history in that character. And for a while, I guess we thought that character wasn't even like allowed to be used by the MCU, another classic rights issue. But so to finally see the character come to life in such a cool way on the big screen, I was like, oh yeah. So he was definitely my most anticipated.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Tom, but like as a general, like I was most excited to see like the side characters again, like M'Baku, Okoye, the Dora Milaje, like all those kind of characters that were like kind of on the sidelines, and I'm glad they all kind of like got their due in this movie.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna be super excited to see the new Black Panther, but I don't know, it didn't hit for me. Seeing Shuri as the new Black Panther, obviously it was something that I expected. Just seeing the way Namor played out again, being like he's a mutant, and seeing how that whole thing played out, and him talking about how he got his powers, I think it was presented so well. Now, what did we think of Namor? I know, Tom, there's a clip that we're going to be looking at, right?
I actually did the Wakanda Forever junket, so I actually got to talk to the cast and the producer and the director. And one of the things we talked about was actually how they adapted Atlantis from the comics into Talokan for the movie. And I think it's such an interesting culture the movie explores. Here's what Nate had to say about it.
But really, it was less about trying to avoid Aquaman comparisons and more about just trying to be more specific about Namor as a character. I think I've read every Namor comic ever published, and the backstory of Atlantis is a little vague. Like, it's sort of like it doesn't feel culturally specific in any way. And one of the things I think Ryan as a filmmaker likes to do is really dive deep, and in the same way that he made Wakanda feel real because of all the specific cultural African influences, he needed what was Atlantis, what is now Talokan, to feel real by having an underpinning of something that felt true and real and in our world. And so he's also very much just interested in themes of colonization, as the first film also had on its mind. And I think finding an indigenous culture who sort of faced something as traumatic as what the Spanish did to the Mayans back in the day, that still resonates with Mayan culture today, it helped us to make Namor and Talokan feel more present and more part of the Black Panther universe than if we kind of just did a direct one-to-one representation of how Atlantis is portrayed.
That is so cool because I actually thought the developing of Namor and grounding him in a real world culture was one of the strengths of the movie. I did think that also that was a reason, like our detour, like our tour of Talokan was where the movie kind of slows down a little too much, and maybe that's where a little of the bloat comes from. But I thought the work they did to make Namor and his people like authentic and real and grounded in our history, I thought was so spectacular. Because in the comics, he's like a fish dude from a mythical city of Atlantis, but to make it Talokan and to now have like a Mayan superhero essentially in the MCU, I thought was incredible.
And they kind of, and what Nate sort of referenced in that clip, and we can explain it a little more here, is that the big difference between Wakanda and Talokan, and because so much is similar between those two, they both have access to vibranium, they're both, kind of protecting themselves from the outside world. They have a lot in common. What's the driving difference? And it's this historical sort of context that Coogler and his co-writer Joe Robert Cole bring into it, which is that the Talokanil come from a history that they have been conquered before. They have been, their land has been taken away from them, and they have had to become nomads, essentially, underwater nomads. And Wakanda has never had to be taken out of their borders. They've always defended their nation. And so that becomes the ideological wedge between Shuri and Namor that sort of plays out through the movie. And the royal family also has to get pulled into that. We see, Okoye has to go on a rescue mission for Shuri as well. And what did you guys think about that? How the royal family reacted to all of Talokan's incursions?
Well, I like how Shuri kind of reacted to it. And I will say one thing about Namor that I really like. It almost kind of draws a through line to Killmonger, where they're the kind of villains where their methods may be questionable, but you can kind of see where they're coming from. I mean, Namor just wants to protect protect Talokan. And so I like how you can kind of see like the gears turning in Shuri's head, where she's like, no, I get it, But of course, it makes total sense to me that the Wakandan council would just be like, no, we're just going to protect our borders. And
that's a good point. In a lot of ways, Namor is like a fusion of T'Challa and Killmonger. Yeah. Because when you think about it, he's the superpowered champion and ruler of this, superpowered nation. But like Killmonger, he got to go and like have his bloody revenge and do what Killmonger would. So he's a fascinating character in that, and I think they did that on purpose to make a lot of parallels between him and the Black Panther and his society as well with Talokan and Wakanda, like you're saying.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit more about the Dora Milaje too and how they react, because some of the best action scenes in the movie I thought were when the Dora Milaje are going up against the Talokanil warriors. Yeah. What did you guys think of some of that? One thing that I loved is when Okoye is going against them for the first time, and you can just like see the fear in her eyes, which I think was brilliant acting when she, goes to kill them and they're still alive, and you can just see it dawn on her that she's like, we've never faced anything like this. And I like that you see them kind of have to deal with it. Like they've always kind of had this advantage of, having a defensive front as Wakanda and having vibranium, and it's like, oh, we actually really have to kick it into gear. And I think Okoye is a great way to explore that, because she's kind of the first person to really experience it.
Now, we actually have one more clip pertaining to that, don't we?
We do.
Want to set that up?
Yeah, well, I spoke to Denai Guerrera at the Wakanda Forever junket, and one of the things we talked about is this sort of collision of duty and of personal love that Okoye has for Shuri and for the royal family, and she kind of takes the brunt of the combat with the Talokanil. And here's Denai Guerrera talking a little bit about having to balance those two things in this movie.
That is something that, one would question, is that your job or is that your sisterhood, and how do they mix, and meld? What Okoye chooses to do to help Shuri, is it helpful or not? Was it a good idea or was it not? And but the goal is, it's because her heart is so intertwined in the royal family that she wants to. She's not just a general to them. She is a family member, and that can have its consequences one way or another, right?
Yeah, and I think she makes such a great point where she's kind of battling these dual roles. She's general of the Dora Milaje, but she's also like basically a member of this family. And so I actually think, you know, her intentions were very pure. I think when you see someone grieving and they're kind of just set in this stagnant state, you want to help give them a distraction or shake up the environment. But ultimately, it's at the cost of her career. And I think that's a really beautiful turn. And I think Denai plays it incredibly. I think she's one of my favorite performances of this movie, but it's a very interesting push and pull that she has to deal with.
It does sort of see the movie. It's this thing about the movie that we keep talking about is when it's focused on the character stuff. It's doing really well. Okoye, we know how loyal Okoye is. We see her basically blow up her marriage in the first Black Panther movie over loyalty to her country, and here we see her really make a choice as to what's more important to her, Shuri or her career, and she chooses Shuri. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was one of the more surprising commitments that the movie made, is really saying, no, we'll change Okoye this much, or we'll represent this much of a different side of her. I really enjoyed when Wakanda Forever took time to do that.
And I think I like the question that it poses was, like, does her connection to the family make her a better or worse general? And I find the movie doesn't really take a strong stance on it either way, which I actually really like. Like, she knows the family best, but at the same time, it causes her decisions to be compromised a little bit.
And I will say, this is all touching on what I thought was actually a very strong and then weak part of the film. First half of the movie for her was incredibly strong, and she has one of the most heartbreaking moments in the movie, and a movie full of heartbreaking moments where she gets fired from being the head of the Dora Milaje for losing the princess. But then from there, she's like off screen for the rest of the movie, and then she does come back, but we don't really get to feel like we don't get to learn what was going on with her. And I felt like that was a real missed opportunity to not, how did she process that? And what does it mean to her to not be a part of the Dora Milaje anymore? The movie had other things that it had to do, and we didn't get to really come back to her after that huge dramatic moment.
Yeah, because it seemed like that was like being the general of the Dora Milaje was so much a part of her identity. Yeah. And it was just, I was devastated for her because, she wanted so hard. She was trying to convince Queen Ramonda that, please, just let me go and find her. Like, what do you do? And you sent someone else to go find her anyways. Well, come on now. I could have done that. But you know what? We're going to hop off just for a quick break. But we'll be right back with even more spoilers right here on IGN's Wakanda Forever Spoilercast. So stick around.
Tune into IGN 1 on your smart TVs for the latest news on your favorite releases, gameplay exclusives, and all the entertainment you can handle.
Cinefix on IGN 1, your friendly Friday night home for film fanaticism.
You're watching The Weekly Fix, ready to fill you in on anything you may have missed in the world of gaming and entertainment.
Welcome to Should I Play This? This is what to watch here on IGN 1.
Find it all in one place for free on IGN 1.
They turned into a network. Who knew?
IGN Playlist is all of your games in one place. You can build your library and discover new games. Create and follow playlists from friends. Access guides for what you're playing. And rate and rank the games you love to share with the world. Available free with your IGN account. It's for players, no matter where you play.
You're a busy gamer with plenty to play. Not a lot of downtime, but you still want to keep up with the latest gaming news? Fret not. No matter where you like to play, PC, PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, I've got the headlines you need to know about. When Half-Life 3 is announced, it'll be on the Daily Fix. When the Switch Pro is announced, you'll be the first to know. And when that big game you just can't wait for is delayed, yeah, I'll have that news too. The Daily Fix, with me, Nars, weekdays only on IGN.
If you're not following IGN on social media, what are you waiting for? We're constantly updating our feeds to bring you the latest news, gameplay, custom original content, memes, the best user-generated videos and art, and a whole lot more. Be part of the conversation throughout the year. Follow IGN on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Snapchat.
Yo, everybody, welcome back to IGN's Wakanda Forever Spoilercast with me and my friends Alex, Tom, and Joshua. And I want to steal this scene by talking about one of the most enigmatic characters we've seen in the movie, M'Baku. Now, how do we like him in this particular movie? Would we say, he pretty much stole the scene whenever he was on screen? I mean, especially for me, when he came in eating that damn Slim Jim, that was like the highlight of my moment.
That was
watching the movie.
Yeah, was that jerky, Tom?
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. But there's some sensitivity around this because when I published my review, I said he walked in, sauntered in, chomping on a stick of jerky. A commenter very helpfully pointed out that the first movie establishes that the Jabari tribe are vegetarians.
Yeah.
But then Tom and I got to have a very fun, what actually is he eating? I think it's a carrot.
These are the important
There's vegan jerky that exists.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they have everything in
It's
common.
impossible jerky.
Impossible jerky.
Yeah. But all joking aside, M'Baku is definitely, I would say M'Baku might be my favorite character in the movie. I have a big soft spot for M'Baku. I really enjoyed how this movie softened his edges and sort of brought him down to earth. He was this fearsome warrior in the first one, and this movie really shows the effect that T'Challa has had on Wakanda as a whole, and it uses M'Baku to do that. I was actually at the junket and I talked to the cast, Ryan Coogler as well, about why family was so important, why these characters moving into older sibling roles for Shuri was so important. And here's what he had to say about that.
This thing has to be a lot of things for it to work. It has to be family drama, like you said. It has to be a political thriller, and it has to be an action movie. But the family side of it is what I think people can relate to the most. Because everybody's got a family. Even if they don't have a family, there's the absence of it that they use to define them. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's for it to work, that kind of has to be the end point. I think that the family side of it has to be the way in. And these characters are fantastical. You know what I'm saying? The African mountain man who worships like a gorilla god. That's out there. Yeah. but okay, big brother, you understand that, you know what I'm saying, or uncle, you understand that, older sisters, auntie, sister-in-law, I get it, you know what I'm saying, and so for that, I think it was important, and it was important that these relationships were believable, which is not easy to do, but we were able to accomplish in the first film. I hope we did in this one.
Well, that was great. Tom, what do you have to say about what we just saw?
Yeah, well, Coogler there really kind of sums up what one of Wakanda Forever's best strengths is showing how this community comes to support Shuri and how it moves these characters that we know, specifically Nakia, Okoye, and M'Baku, really into these kind of older sibling roles. And I think that sort of tendency of the movie is best shown through M'Baku, a character that is just so ferocious in the first movie and yet so measured and has clearly learned so much from T'Challa coming into this one, which is setting up some crazy stuff going forward for the MCU, which is that not only is M'Baku a much more sensitive leader and friend, he is now going to be the king of Wakanda, it looks like.
It certainly seems to be implied in the end that he's going to take the throne. Shuri is not interested. He says she sends her regards. He shows up. I don't think anyone on that waterfall was gonna challenge him, or certainly not win if they did. So it is interesting. Perhaps it's what I was alluding to before, that the MCU going forward doesn't want to make Shuri the Black Panther and the leader of Wakanda. Let's have M'Baku be the leader. So I think that's it feels like they definitely put him on that track, and that's where we're going to go in the future.
That's kind of what I was thinking, Joshua. It seems like they saw how much the audience reacted to him in Black Panther, and so they kind of teased a larger role in Wakanda Forever. He didn't get as much screen time as I would have liked him to, because the movie just had so much to tackle. But you going into the next phase of the MCU, yes, he looks like a valid leader for Wakanda. He's level-headed. And I just can't wait to see more of this character.
I mean, it could even be, the hint could be in the title of the movie right there, Wakanda Forever. Maybe Marvel's thinking about, like, maybe it doesn't have to be as much about the Black Panther. Maybe we want to focus more on Wakanda as a whole. This movie really does do that. It does give us a much bigger sense of Wakanda's place in the world and place in relation to Talokan, and that rivalry that gets established there. But yeah, I think that the future is going to be very interesting with M'Baku at the helm of the country. I think he's going to be a good king. I really like what this movie did with him.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, are we all in agreement that M'Baku would be a good ruler of Wakanda? Because, like, I mean, like, for me, he's great comic relief. He's also a great warrior. He's a great ruler of his tribe. I don't know. I have mixed feelings on how he would handle things on the throne. So I'm kind of curious, like, well, Alex, you've already spoken. You think M'Baku would be a great leader. What about you, Joshua?
I'd like to see what he does with the place. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
He's definitely an interesting character because he has as we saw in the first movie, a very extreme point of view and, has a really strong attitude. But in this one, we really saw that he matured a lot. I think his experience in the first movie really, humbled him a little bit. And in this one, he felt a responsibility. Yeah, the snap. Mm-hmm. In this one, it felt like a responsibility to, be a good advisor to Shuri. I think he even said that it was T'Challa who asked him to take that role, and he took that very earnestly, and he really put his heart into it. And I think he's lost a lot. And there's a line in the movie where they say the broken people make the best leaders, and so I feel like he's suffered so much, from the snap and losing T'Challa and everything, that I think he has a lot of wisdom to share going forward.
And it's and this kind of character development is actually well seated even in the first Black Panther movie. We see him save T'Challa after Killmonger tosses him into the river. Mm-hmm. It's the Jabari and M'Baku who preserve him and keep him alive. Even the M'Baku totally could have taken the throne. They literally ask him to take the heart-shaped herb and defend Wakanda from Killmonger. He says, no, the real Black Panther is right down there. We just gotta thaw him out a little bit.
But to your point, Akeem, it is one thing to lead a tribe, a complete other thing to lead Wakanda. And I think it would be, really interesting if you picture that UN scene with Ramonda in the beginning of Wakanda Forever. Like, try to picture M'Baku in that scene.
Yes.
Like, you would just be like, no, what are you guys talking about?
Just eating carrots.
Chewing on the Slim Jims, or carrot, whatever it is. Now, M'Baku was great. Ironheart was pretty great as well. So I want to talk about Riri, of course. What do we think of the introduction of this particular character, and what does it mean for her upcoming Disney Plus series?
Well, so I actually thought Dominique Thorne, who plays Riri Williams, did such a great job. Mm-hmm. She just really makes a very distinct impression of who this character is, and I could not get enough of her. It did its job of teasing the upcoming Disney Plus series that she will have, but also it almost... I feel like they kind of got ahead of themselves a little bit because they're like, okay, here's her Iron Man suit that she made in her garage. Let's have her fly. That was actually a really fun action scene. But then at the end, they're like, now here's a full-on, hyper-advanced Wakandan Iron Man suit, probably made of vibranium. But at the end, they're like, we can't send you, out the door with that. You have to give that back. And it's sort of weird that they really took her through an entire extreme character arc, but then of course they had to do a soft reboot for the show. So she's probably gonna have to start and build her own Iron Man suit at the start of the show.
I don't know how extreme of a character arc she had though, and that's kind of my problem, which is that she is brought in and her personality is infectious. She's just so fun on screen. Yeah. That introduction scene with her and Okoye and Shuri coming into the room, and I love how Okoye treats every American like they barely understand what she's saying. Just like, little girl. But it's kind of too much of a good thing, I think. I think that Riri is a really interesting character, and I'm so excited to see her Disney Plus series, but I felt like the movie took a lot of liberty in keeping her involved in the action in a believable way. She's obviously brought in because she's developed this technology that can detect vibranium, which is very interesting to, any world power, really. But after that kind of gets established, the reason for her staying around and for the Wakandans protecting her, I don't think that the movie tracks that very well. And it's one of the things that when we're talking about how great the character work that Shuri gets and M'Baku gets, when we're talking about that, it's so much more glaringly obvious that that same kind of intention wasn't put into Riri's character in this movie.
No, I completely agree. And I feel like Riri is one of those things about Wakanda Forever that I really like in isolation. Like, I really like that dorm room scene in isolation. But I just don't think they had enough time, or they had too much to cover to really, like, give her a proper arc. That said, the actress is phenomenal, and I cannot wait to see the Disney Plus series.
Yeah. It definitely made me more excited for the Disney Plus series, seeing what Riri has to offer. And I'm glad they took that suit back. I want to see her start from scratch when she gets back to Boston. Now, with that, let's take one more quick break, and we'll be back with more of the future of the MCU on IGN's Wakanda Forever Spoilercast. Stick around.
The only thing better than listening to IGN podcasts is watching them. Luckily, all your favorite weekly shows are here on IGN 1. Whether you're chasing the latest Xbox releases with Unlocked, looking for your PlayStation fix with Beyond, tracking everything coming to Switch with Nintendo Voice Chat, or catching up on this week's gaming news with GameScoop, we've got you covered. Check it out. Tune in every weekday at 5 p.m. for the best gaming coverage right here on IGN 1.
Everybody loves watching a speedrun of their favorite game, but what if you got a chance to peek into the mind of the developers behind those games as they watch their hard work get completely destroyed right in front of them?
What is happening right now?
That's exactly what happens on every episode of Devs React to Speedruns. We invite you to ride along with the developers as they watch, react, and enjoy some of the craziest gameplay by the most skilled speedrunners on the planet. Tune in every Saturday for a brand new episode.
In a world with non-stop news about Marvel, Netflix, and Star Wars, you need a show with accurate reporting, hard-hitting commentary, and me. I'm Akeem Lawanson, the host of The Fix Entertainment. Whether it's the latest superhero scoop, film fiasco, or anime announcement, I'll be right here covering all the latest in major studio headlines and pop culture news. Make sure to catch The Fix Entertainment wherever you watch IGN.
Tune in to IGN 1 for the latest news on your favorite releases, gameplay exclusives, and all the entertainment you can handle. And maybe even some you can't.
Cinefix on IGN 1, your friendly Friday night home for film fanaticism.
You're watching The Weekly Fix, ready to fill you in on anything you may have missed in the world of gaming and entertainment.
Find it all in one place on IGN 1.
They turned into a network. Who knew?
Welcome back to IGN's Wakanda Forever Spoilercast, and I really just want to jump right into things and talk about what does all of this mean for the future of the MCU. Now, of course, joining me is Tom, Alex, and Joshua. Joshua, let's start with you. What are your thoughts and theories about what we witnessed in Wakanda Forever and what it means for the future of the MCU?
I think it's obvious that they really wanted to build out Namor and his people. I think he's going to be a big player going forward. His past and his present and his future. His past being that he's the first mutant. He uses the word mutant to describe himself. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Settle. Okay. We waited so long and now it's finally happening. Of course, in the Miss Marvel series, we heard she had a mutation. This is the first person who's been labeled. He labels himself as a mutant. In the comics, we of course know that Namor is the first mutant. He has been a part of the X-Men, of the Avengers, of the Illuminati. So maybe if the MCU proper main universe gets its Illuminati, maybe he'll join up on that council. His people are still a secret at the end of this movie, so eventually he'll have a coming out party, and I think then he will join maybe the Avengers, maybe the X-Men. But also because he is an anti-hero and he's always out for his own best interest and the interest of his people. Don't be surprised if he joins up on maybe a villainous team. He's been a part of the dark version of the Illuminati called the Cabal. And he's been a part of the dark X-Men and stuff. So he's a character who I'm not sure, where he will align himself, wherever it suits him and his people in the moment, definitely. But yeah, I definitely see the very long and in-depth origin story they gave him and his people. That could be the catalyst for a mutant kind in the MCU. Because I think before this, I think we all assumed that it was going to be the multiverse that brought the X-Men to the MCU. We got Professor X and Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness. Evan Peters had that weird cameo in WandaVision.
What was his character's name again?
It was, don't say it. Don't say it.
Can we maybe put it on screen?
No,
text?
please up. And then Ryan Reynolds, of course, made that announcement video where he said he's going to do Deadpool 3 with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. And so I think the assumption there was that the Fox X-Men universe would cross over with the MCU and those characters would come to the MCU proper. But now I think they have a more natural way of doing it where they could say Namor was the first mutant made in the 1600s, and so therefore from there the X gene could have spread from him throughout the world, or maybe there's other vibranium deposits that somehow affected other groups of people in different ways, and so therefore when you catch up and let a few hundred years pass, you get mutants in the modern day, and the X-Men are sort of always here among us, kind of like Kamala Khan is just now finding out that she has a mutation. I don't know. I'm just excited. They did the groundwork. They laid some, they definitely are paving a road to where we could get X-Men from here.
Well, it makes you what it brought to mind for me was the idea, and this is obviously, it's sort of the MCU project we don't talk about anymore, Inhumans. Inhumans, correct me if I'm wrong, they get their powers from the Terrigen Mists, right? So I wonder if the Marvel Cinematic Universe is kind of trying to bring all these things that can give people powers and kind of melding them all into vibranium, because we see it's Namor's mother wears that bracelet. That makes contact with her skin. That's part of why he gets those powers in the first place. So maybe they're just going to wrap this all into one vibranium. Vibranium's the thing that gives you powers.
Being very detailed, I did get to see the movie a second time, so this is fresher in my mind. But I think she takes the potion while pregnant, and I think those combined factors are what make her.
Gotcha.
I thought the bracelet had something to do with it the first time around, but I watched it again, and the bracelet was just a symbolic thing they gave her, saying that her son would be king because he was the first son of the new Talokan.
That's not how she synthesizes the heart-shaped herb.
Because I thought the same thing. I thought it had something to do more with the magic of it all.
Did she not drink the potion?
She did drink it. She did drink it.
Yeah. They say that the bracelet is there to denote him as a symbol that he will become king.
But I think what Shuri is able to do, because we talked earlier about the confidence level of the heart-shaped herb, that they're synthesizing, and I thought it was a fiber from the bracelet.
Right, the bracelet was made with it has the potion in it, essentially. But I don't know.
She broke that down and combined it with T'Challa's DNA to synthesize, to make the synthesized herb.
They probably could have made that clearer to me.
Yeah. But it's clear the vibranium is obviously going to play some kind of role.
And let's not forget, we also were introduced to Riri because she made a vibranium detector. I think that's significant too. It all comes back to vibranium.
For a class project too. I want to know who was the teacher behind that. Or was it the government?
There's theories going on about this, because we know that the villain of the next Captain America movie, at least one of them, will be the leader from the Incredible Hulk movie. Everyone remembers the leader, right? That Tim Blake Nelson character with the big head. Yeah. Anyway, so the leader is out there. He is in academia. He's obviously not the nicest guy in the world. Maybe he could have been the professor. We also meet Lake Bell's character, who is on the ship there, which was kind of big casting for a character that is so throwaway.
So strange.
Literally thrown away into the ocean where she's dead.
At full speed.
No, then she was gone.
Yeah. So, as far as who that professor was that passed that tech along, we don't know yet. These are all threads that future MCU movies will probably pick up on, as well as the Val and the Ross of it all.
Yeah. That's huge, I think, going forward, because as we know, Phase 5 will end in a Thunderbolts movie. Val is the head of the Thunderbolts. We know the Thunderbolts cast. I do wonder if maybe Wakanda or Talokan will be a target. She goes after their resources. They make a big point in this movie that she dreams all day of what she could do with some vibranium. So I'd be interested to see where that goes. But that was obviously a huge pointed setup for Thunderbolts. And I think also that Everett Ross could be the son of I'm blanking on his name.
I was really curious to what you were going to say, though.
Yes, you're leaving in suspense.
Yeah.
Everett Ross could be the son of General Ross, Thunderbolt.
Oh!
It's not canon in the comics.
Why? Why did I never do it?
It's right there.
And Harrison Ford has been cast as General Ross. And then we have Everett Ross, so who knows? There could be some 100%
going to happen.
That's a really good
The
theory.
MCU loves taking shortcuts like that.
Now, as we begin to wrap things up, Where do we think Wakanda Forever ranks in the MCU's Phase 4?
Good question. For me, it's kind of in the middle of the pack. So movie-wise, I don't like it as much as I liked No Way Home and Shang-Chi. I liked it better than Black Widow and Eternals and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Talking about Disney Plus shows, WandaVision is my favorite, thing of Phase 4, so it's obviously below that. It's below like Hawkeye for me, so it's pretty solidly in the middle of the pack for me.
Yeah, I would say if I had like a tier 1 in Phase 4, it has WandaVision, it has Shang-Chi in there, Spider-Man No Way Home, Loki, and then there's sort of like the tier 2, and that's where I'd put Wakanda Forever. What it did, emotionally and allowing us to grieve like Chadwick Boseman and T'Challa, I thought it was so impressive and so well done, but the movie just is a little bloated. It's got a weird third act. Can we talk about the third act real quick?
Of course, yeah.
It is kind of a cop-out.
It's like they fight a superpowered nation from the water, in the water, with this weird like battleship thing. I loved like how it kicked off because I thought it was so cool how like the Dora Milaje rappelling off the side as the Talokan are like trying to scale the side and having this cool battle.
Just don't stop to think about it.
Just don't stop to think about it. And then like the Black Panther coming in, she's like dragging her claws as she's like fighting on the side of this battleship. I thought that was like so cool. But then from there, I'm like, oh, well, this doesn't really make sense the longer we think about it, because like they don't. It's a suicide mission, right?
Yeah.
They're like, we just need to take out Namor and do whatever we can. But once they get Namor away and go fight him on land, the rest of them are just there to die. And they almost do, but they're almost like comedically, very, very cartoonishly, all being backed into a corner, and it's all the named characters who, of course, can't die because they're going to be in like shows and spinoffs and stuff.
And not to mention, Namor was nice enough to give them a week to prepare. Like they could have built a defensive trap, but no, they went to the middle of the ocean.
Yeah,
he took a week. We'll build a ship.
He wanted to do the Voldemort thing, which is give everyone a week to bury their dead. Yeah, he was just nicer and didn't do it.
It's just so weird. Anyways, but yeah, Black Panther, it's the middle high tier for me.
Yeah, I'm going to be in agreement there. It is. I do put No Way Home and Shang-Chi and Loki and WandaVision ahead of it. I think those are kind of my strongest of the phase. But then Wakanda Forever coming in. We're talking so much about what an effective emotional tribute it is to Chadwick Boseman, and it certainly is that. And we're talking about it a lot. It is not the majority of the movie. The majority is this swashbuckling Marvel Cinematic Universe adventure that you would expect it to be. And I think the reason that we're celebrating the celebration that the movie has for Chadwick is because once you kind of move past that and past that story thread, there's not quite as much there.
Yeah. Like for me, it's in the mid range is what I would say. As far as like emotional impact, it was there. Yeah. It was there 100% for me. But I'm one of those individuals where I look at this movie, I look at Marvel movies as like I have cousins, like younger cousins, and they're comic book fans because of me. They're nerds because of me, and they're still young. They're on the younger side, so. They just want the action. They want to see their favorite superheroes on the big screen fighting these villains. They want to see that type of story. And so I think about it in the terms of like, they're not able to process death as an adult would just yet. So it's kind of taking that element, that action element, that Marvel element kind of out of it a little bit for them. I know we're gonna be in the theater like, what's going on? I don't understand what happened to T'Challa, and I'm like, I don't know. It's not explained. And then I'll obviously explain to them what happened, which they already know what happened to Chadwick Boseman. So I don't know. It's a different element for me as far as like Marvel movies are concerned, but it's in the mid range for me. I would definitely say. Now, before we wrap up, this was a lot. I'm pretty sure this is a lot for y'all watching at home. This was a lot for us here. This was emotionally charged as well. Final thoughts. Let me start with you, Tom.
My final thoughts, and we kind of referenced this a little bit as we were just talking there. This is a movie that fans of the MCU are always going to look at as an important turning point. And it is a goodbye to Chadwick Boseman. It is also a look at how important Wakanda is going to be to the MCU going forward. It is going to be critical to how we see mutants come in and how the Thunderbolts probably plays out. All the time we spend with Val and Ross. And where it is not completely effective, I think that will sort of go away with time. I think we'll go and remember this movie as being a really effective tribute to Chadwick Boseman and a really strong sort of crossroads, but maybe as its own movie, maybe not the strongest.
Now, Josh, I want to get your final thoughts also. I know you had some strong thoughts about Angela Bassett's death in this particular movie, Queen Ramonda's death.
Oh yeah, well, really, her performance was so good. It has to be mentioned.
Yeah,
I've definitely seen the Oscar buzz, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if she got that. What a powerful performance, and she just gives it really everything, and elevates it to this Shakespearean quality of that when she's like reading the UN to Phil. Everything was like so good, and it was very sad to see that character pass away in the movie. Although I don't know if the death was really was it necessary? Was it appropriate? Just because we're already dealing with this other death that is like hanging over the entire movie, that to like have Shuri have to deal with another death. That's a lot. It really is. I almost don't have the emotional capacity in me to process another death of this incredible character, 2/3 of the way into the movie. It's a surprisingly grim movie in some ways, yet it offers hope at the end. So I really just, my overall thoughts, just to wrap this up, is that I'm very appreciative of Marvel using this movie to help us grieve. And I think that's because they could have just gone on and just had the Marvel machine keep going on. They didn't have to stop and let us reflect and make a touching tribute to Chadwick Boseman, but they did, and I think that's what I really like about this movie in the end.
Overall, I kind of agree with you guys. I think it was almost a no-win proposition going into it, because like you were saying, Tom, you have to serve as a kind of grieving for the audience for Chadwick. You have to put all these other pieces and motions for the rest of the MCU. It was always going to be bloated and overstuffed no matter what. That said, I really respect that the hardest part, which was paying tribute to Chadwick and T'Challa and the grieving process, I really appreciate that was done well, and that's why I am bummed about the parts that kind of weighed it down a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think that mission was very much accomplished.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say I'm gonna give a moment of honesty right now. One of my biggest gripes just with the Black Panther franchise is I just hate that we seem to constantly use death as a motivating factor for our characters. You see that in the first movie. You see that with Killmonger, seeing his father die. Of course, T'Chaka dying. And now in this movie, like what you were saying, Joshua, did we really need Queen Ramonda to die in order for Shuri to be motivated to do what she did in this movie? Like, did we really need that? For me, it was just one of my biggest. It's been one of my biggest gripes, and seeing that continue on in the sequel years later is, I don't know. It's upsetting for me as a black man watching this movie, seeing these characters motivated by death. Anyways, overall though, I won't go too much in depth with it. My producer's looking at me with a smirk on his face, but I'm not going to go too much in depth about how I feel about this movie, because I can go on for a very long time.
Spoilercast sequel.
Yes, exactly. But overall, it was a solid tribute to the late and great Chadwick Boseman. I would definitely say that. Like I said, definitely it's in the mid-range for me as it pertains to the MCU's Phase 4 movies. But Tom, Joshua, Alex, I want to thank you all so much for joining me on this Spoilercast. We got to do it again. We need another big movie coming out very soon. That was indeed IGN's Black Panther Wakanda Forever Spoilercast. Now let's keep the conversation going in the comment section down below. We'd love to know your thoughts on the movie. And until next time, true believers, have a good day and Wakanda Forever. I'm Akeem Lawanson, and this is What to Watch on IGN1. It's a weekly show where we check out the latest and greatest in trailers, reviews, and everything else in the world of entertainment. Tune in to new episodes every Friday at 9 p.m. on IGN1.
IGN is your go-to for the latest and best in games, movies, and television. And with over 50 million IGN subscribers, you're in good company.
Oh, we're shooting turkeys!
Thanks to your help, we've raised over $100,000 for charity.
Thanks to you guys.
Brought you and creators the world over together for events like Gamescom and DC Fandom.
Brenton Thwaites here. I play Dick Grayson.
And made your voices heard. You voted almost 30 million times in our best video game of all time and Super Movie Madness tournaments, and posted over 40 million times on IGN's message boards. The chat must flow. Catch our unending stream of up-to-date news and so much more over at IGN.com or subscribe to IGN on YouTube. And check out IGN Games and IGN Movies and TV for deep dives into your preferred pop culture. Plus, IGN guides to get help on veritably any game from our team of experts. No matter where you are, IGN.com, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, IGN has you covered.
IGN Playlist is all of your games in one place. You can build your library and discover new games. Create and follow playlists from friends. Access guides for what you're playing. And rate and rank the games you love to share with the world. Available free with your IGN account. It's for players, no matter where you play.
What's up, everybody? I'm Stella Chung, and you're about to get your weekly fix. This is the show where we round up all the biggest gaming and entertainment headlines you won't want to miss. Tune into new episodes every Saturday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern and Pacific on IGN 1.